The Best People We Know radio show. This is where you'll meet experts and celebrities who share their success secrets with you to help you be your most successful best too. Your host, Deb Scott, is a certified professional coach at Discover the Amazing You Coaching and author of the award-winning motivational book, The Sky is Green and the Grass is Blue, turning your upside-down world right side up. The Best People We Know radio show brings you powerful resources, effective ideas, and transformational tools you can use to educate, inspire, and motivate you to be your most purposeful, peaceful, happy best. So get ready to experience mind vitamins to feed your whole soul. Good change is about to happen. The Best People We Know radio show. Here's your host, Deb Scott.
Good morning to all the best people I know. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Well, in the Boston area, the sun is shining, and it is absolutely gorgeous. And wherever you are, Jeremy McDonald is going to bring you some sunshine today because he's going to help you, our guest today, help you really get your spiritual strength, clear the fear, all that stuff, dump the junk, and really light the best person that you were created to be. And when you're feeling your best, everybody else around you is feeling good too. So this is going to be a great show for everyone. Who doesn't need a little spiritual strength? I want to remind everybody that we're over about 45,000 listeners now. Wow, and I know that is a huge feat for a show that's only been on the air a little over a year. So please share the show with a friend, especially this show today with Jeremy. You can download us on iTunes for free. Listen to us 24/7. You can go to my website, Green Sky and Blue Grass. In the right-hand side, you can sign up for the Motivation Monthly Mind Vitamin News, and that'll give you a listing of all of our great guests. Well, speaking of great guests, we have Jeremy with us, so let me tell you a little bit about him and how you can connect with him before we get into his sharing of tips, which is going to be really fun. Jeremy is founder of the Lamplight Group, and this is an organization and a group that works to contribute to the enlightenment of the world as to the divine nature, power, and oneness of all living things. He's also an accomplished spiritual healer and teacher. He's a Reiki master. He's an EFT and certified theta healing practitioner, and he's also a life coach. He's been a public speaker for over a decade, and he's designed and delivered many national workshops to assist individuals in helping them find peace and joy in their lives. How does he do this? Well, he believes that overcoming fears can be used as a source of looking from an inside soul perspective, and by doing this, he helps people overcome their fears so that his clients and all of us today can find greater balance, peace, joy, and our true sublime self-love. To quote Jeremy, "The outside world is a mirror and metaphor for our internal reality. And when we embrace who we are and realize that by looking within, we can unify and embrace all that is outside us, we find peace, bliss, and enlightenment." That sounds really good to me. I don't know about you. His new book, Peace Be Still, will be released later this month, and it is a privilege and pleasure to welcome Jeremy McDonald to the show, and I invite everybody to go to Jeremy McDonald, McDonald.net, and get all of his great resources. You'll learn so much about him. It's a great place, and thank you so much, Jeremy. How are you this morning?
Good, Deb. How are you? Wow, what a wonderful introduction.
Well, when you have a bio like yours, it's pretty easy. You know, I also forgot to mention that you are a host of Soul Talk Radio, and that's another great resource. You're just so dedicated to sincerely help people. It's such a blessing to have you with us to share your shine.
Thank you.
And there could have been more in that bio, Jeremy, but we wouldn't have ever gotten onto the show.
Very true.
We got to move on in that. You know, I know that we have a lot of listeners across the world, and they listen at different hours and different times. I would love if you could just share with people what you want them to get out of today, or what you're hoping they'll be able to at least, you know, think about considering having that happiness and that spiritual strength, because there is a message for everyone, I think, everyone listening today, no matter what business you're in, no matter what part of life you're in, and let's just start with what you want guests to get out of today.
Absolutely. One of the key lessons I've had in life, and I had to learn on my own, is that there's a greatness in every single one of us, and once you discover that, it is one of the greatest things you will ever do in your life. And I find in a lot of people I work with, that I coach, there is an inadequacy program inside of them that makes them feel less than everything else and less than everybody else. And one of the things I had to discover is that wasn't true. It wasn't true in myself. It's not true in anybody else. And so if I could give anybody anything, it's just to look deep within yourself and know who you are, and that as a great, beautiful, divine being that can do anything. There's nothing that you can't do. And, any odds that you have, anything you have stacked up against you is just an opportunity for you to realize how great you really are, because those odds are just jewels that once you accomplish them, once you walk through them and understand them and overcome them, they become treasures. And you look back at them, you're like, wow, that wasn't as big as I thought it was. I actually did this. And it's a huge, huge accomplishment when you can do that. And it really just takes embracing who you are, and that's a great being.
Wow, now now I'm loving that. I'm feeling the love through the airwaves on that one. I think everybody's agreeing. Because it's such a beautiful thing to think about. I don't know who said the quote, but something about, we're all a gift. Each person is a gift, but not everybody unwraps the gift of themselves.
Yep.
And I think that's your message, and why you've been so successful is you really, truly believe and know that each person has within them everything they need, and it's just a matter of, maybe you're a catalyst in helping them unwrap those things, and releasing those things. And, towards that end, it's a great segue, because I know that in your book you talk a lot about, everybody wants to be happy. Never have ever met anybody that didn't want to feel happy.
Mm-hmm.
But you talk a lot about that idea. We have that control for our emotional well-being within us versus being outside of us. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
Well, let's just give you a little bit about my life, just like a 30-second rundown, is that I spent, a lot of people, I spent a lot of time looking at what I wanted out of life, but I looked at the beautiful partner, or the perfect partner, or the perfect job, and the perfect car, and the perfect house, and all those things are great, except that those things, if you didn't find happiness in yourself, they will not give you happiness. In other words, what happened to me is I ended up with all those things, and then it all collapsed around me. And when I was left by myself, I found that there wasn't a very happy person sitting there. There was a person that was trying to control that whole world, and even at times manipulate that world to hold on to it so that I didn't lose it. And so when the universe, or whatever you want to call it, took it down from me, all I had was myself to sit there. And it was even bad enough to where I joke about this sometimes in my speeches, that even cable TV was taken away from me. So all I had was to sit in myself and realize that in myself I just had to make a choice. I'm going to be happy, and then take the steps to get there. And it is a process. You continue to go through the process of self-discovery, and I call self-awareness the steps to becoming happy. Because once you realize that literally all you're doing is going through this process of steps, and the journey is where all the happiness is at, then you discover a whole lot about yourself, and you discover a whole lot about people around you. And what happened is, when I found this happiness in myself, happy people just happen to manifest around me, because likes attract alike. And so I found that I had loving people around me, and that I was loving, and then there was a flow between us, that we built this world. And that's why the Lamplight Group, we called it a spiritual light movement, because all we're doing is spreading the light onto the world, or love onto the world. So.
I just really love that you're sharing your personal story in that way, because I think that, listeners can say, well, sometimes it can be intimidating, because they listen to you and your bio and everything, and it's, well, I can't relate to Jeremy. I don't have all those degrees. I don't have all those accolades. But what you're saying is, look, we're the same. If you had an illusion that something was going to make you happy, and then you got disappointed because it didn't, we're looking out in the same direction. And I love, not that I'm happy that those things happen to you, but I love how, you found this journey and the happiness in the journey and some of the things that, you're sharing with people to make that happen. So talk about that. What do listeners need to do now? What are some of the steps besides going to your website and getting your book and joining you? You have a great Facebook community, by the way. I mean, thousands of people there, and they are terrific. And I am like, somebody called me a curator of images with quotes, and I'm like, no, I think Jeremy has the best photos with the best quotes, those little pithy things that you put in your mind. I call them mind vitamins. You have a lot of mind vitamins to feed your whole soul at that Facebook group. It's just fantastic. But talk about maybe somebody's dealing with unhappiness. Maybe the illusion broke, that the thing they thought was going to make them happy. Maybe they've lost the cable. Maybe they've lost the money. Maybe they've lost the relationship. Maybe they're dealing with an addiction. Where does this spiritual strength discovery begin?
Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to just sit down in yourself, and you just have to admit it to yourself. Listen, I don't like where I'm at. But I'm going to love where I'm at, and that's a hard step. And give the example of that. I had a girl that was really addicted to drugs. I mean, big time into anything you can think of, cocaine and heroin and many other things. So she had a chemical addiction on top of her emotional problems that were going on. And I had her just start by looking in the mirror and looking at herself and looking directly into her eyes and saying, I love you. And her eyes started twitching, and she started feeling a pain throughout her body. And so what the process was is for her to finally look at herself and feel that pain that was swelling up inside of her, and literally just overcoming her. And what she realized, and she looked back at me, she goes, I just feel this massive amount of pain and anxiety on my body. I said, yeah, because in your life, you've never looked at yourself and said, I love you. You in reality, where are you at right now? She goes, I don't love myself. I said, that's what we have to change. That's where we have to flip inside of you. We have to flip that anger towards yourself into love. And then I asked her, well, why are you so angry with yourself? And it came back to, her family was abusive, and she was always trying to impress her family, and she was always trying to do things for them and always trying to make them happy and constantly chasing after them. And so her outward projection was she was just trying to gain their acceptance and gain their love. And I said, but that love doesn't come from them. It comes from you. And you looking in the mirror and feeling that pain inside of yourself is a testament to where you're at. You feel pain. So now let's look at the pain. And when she stopped and she actually took a second, she says, all this time, and I've been just beating myself up inside, chasing after them, when I just had to stop and give myself acceptance. And so that's the first step. The very first step is just to look and see that I have a problem. I have a problem that I'm looking out at them, and I got to find that acceptance inside of myself. And so what we go for, the next step is to spend time in ourselves. And I spent it in meditation a long time, and then I would just sit in myself. What is my lesson today? And I would sit sometimes an hour, up to 6 hours sometimes, but most people don't have that kind of time. So if you take 30 minutes a day, and if you just say, what's my lesson today? What is it I'm not seeing? Your body will start telling you, and it will start surfacing things. And that's one of the things in EFT, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Deb, is that you start doing a rolling EFT, and it starts bringing up the emotional issues. And so then it might just start off with, one day you might say, well, I'm smoking, and what's my lesson here? And it comes back, and it goes back to when you're 15 years old and you started smoking because you wanted to be accepted by the crowd. And then it goes even deeper, that you never felt accepted. And then it goes all the way back to your family, and you might have had brothers and siblings that picked on you all the time, and you always felt left out. And so then you have to look at those, and you have to let each one of those things go. You have to say, well, that's the past, and that no longer affects me now because I'm accepting myself today going forward in the now of the moment. And when you do that and you let go of that past, then you don't have that baggage on your shoulders anymore. It's like this huge rock that you've been carrying around, and you drop it, and you no longer have to carry that load anymore. And most of the time I find if people just look at it and they start becoming aware of it, things just start letting go, because it's their awareness that's key. Most people don't even know that there's even a problem, and they just keep on walking around thinking things are okay. And it takes sometimes big things to help them move forward.
But you know, you're giving us some really great coaching, which is why you are so successful and why you are you and doing what you're doing, because you really do have a gift with people to be able to gently and lovingly help them let go of things they don't need so that they can embrace the things that they want and do need. And I love how you give us two really simple things. I mean, everybody, all of us listening right now, this is something we can do as soon as the call is over with Jeremy. We can go in the mirror, say I love you, and see how we feel. You know, do you feel like the woman that he was working with and blinking and feeling uncomfortable and, you know, awkward saying that to yourself? Or do you feel at peace? I think that's a real good, you know, thermometer test to really truthfully look at how do we see ourselves. And I love that, Jeremy, that you gave us all this very simple, useful, powerful tool that we can do immediately because we've, you know, been in this moment in time with you, which I don't think is an accident. And the second thing, you know, it's so powerful, silence with ourself, and how much we hear those messages so loudly when there's no noise around us. And if somebody doesn't really do that, or they do it a lot, you know, you're just telling them to trust the process, really, because it will come. Those things will come for them. Somebody's listening saying, well, it may come to Jeremy. No, you've been there. You've done that, and you teach this. Tell somebody about that.
Can I add just something on to that? And if somebody, because I used to do that myself. Well, you know, they can do that because they have this, and you know, I might have said, well, Deb can do that because she has a successful radio show. You know what I mean? I would have done that kind of thing. But I want to just share with you guys how deep my issues were, and I'm going to just fillet myself open and tell you, I actually had a drug addiction myself. I was addicted to crystal meth, and I had a sex addiction, and I'm lucky that I don't have an illness from that. And that takes, what happened is that was an avoidance for me to look at the real issue. The real issue was that I didn't like myself and I didn't care for myself. And so all that stuff, and I did that while I had the title of vice president. So those titles and all those accolades that we think make us happy, they don't. We can be happy with those accolades, but the reality is that those things, they don't make us happy. I have another friend. She was very successful, and she had the accolade of Kentucky Colonel. And she had a heart attack and a near-death experience when she was 46. So, and had the master's degrees and all that stuff. So I want to share with you guys is just worry less about what you have in accolades and what you think you have, and you have to start going into, why do I feel insignificant to another soul when we all have the abilities to be great? Every single one of us. And look at all these success stories out here, the ones that rise out of what we consider to be the lowest part of humanity into the greatest part of humanity. But all those greatness and humanity terms are all physical terms, and those are all a part of us as well. But we have to those people had to find that in themselves in order to rise out of those ranks. It wasn't somebody who just pulled them out. It's us. And so we have to find that greatness in us, and so stillness is a key thing. And in reality, when we go in there and we have to look at those that mind chatter that says we're not good enough, and we have so much mind chatter going on most of the time, and that it really just puts us into a struggle. I call it a mind poison sometimes. And I had something happen to me recently. Where I was driving by this house in Tampa, and I was like, it was a house I've wanted since I was 16, and there was a for sale sign on it, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I said, well, if this happens, then I'll be able to do this. And I thought to myself, stop. And I backed the car up and I looked at it and I said, that or better. The reason why I did that is because the mind chatter goes into you have to do this so you can afford it, or for this to happen, this has to happen. That right there already makes us insignificant to whatever it is. Even if you had enough money, it might have been the timing, or maybe it wasn't cash flow, or maybe, whatever. But if you're supposed to have that house, it'll happen and it'll be easy. And I look at it as this. Nothing in life, we do have to do work. We have to act on opportunities. We have to take steps to get there. But in reality, to me, life is an easy process if we make it easy. And I was making it very, very hard before. And a lot of us are making it very, very hard. But if you
I think so. I think that you hit the nail on the head right there. It's like, why are we don't need enemies. We can be our own worst enemies sometimes. Exactly. And I love what you're talking about with that mind chatter and the poison. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. I mean, who hasn't really had that experience? And I think the real lie is that we think, and as you mentioned, you were vice president when all these things were going on. It looks on the outside like that's not possible. So we figure somebody else doesn't have mind chatter, or somebody else doesn't have fear.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah. And I've found even great spiritual teachers have mind chatter because we're all growing. We're all expanding. And the more deeper and deeper we get into that mind chatter, the more and more we let go of it, the happier we get. And really, in reality, we get more in love with ourselves. And it's, some people think that's narcissistic, but it's really not. It's not that type of love. It's just deep understanding of yourself. And so what you're just getting is you're just getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into it. And what you're doing is you're developing a relationship with your inner divinity or your inner self. And that's the connection to all things. So
this is so key, and I just want listeners to, this really is the heart, I think, of your message to me, because finding spiritual strength, clearing the fear, that self-love in a healthy way, you really direct us and point us to having this relationship, this, connection with this inner voice, God, universe, divinity. And I am just really excited to hear you talk on this, because you say this is the most important relationship that will bring you to all the other relationships being healthy and worthwhile and successful.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And why people run from it is we think that divinity is separate from us. And so we believe that we're praying and giving all this respect to something that's not a part of us, and it's very much a part of us. It lies right inside of us, and it's connected to all things. And so when we have a deep, loving relationship with that divinity, then everything goes into flow. And love, to me, is flow. And when we, in that ease of flow and love, everything just starts happening for you. And we become like children. We become childlike. And we just enjoy every moment of every day. Even the times when we get a little bit depressed, we just look at it, and then it becomes that opportunity, and you get excited because you had the moment just to become more aware. And so it becomes this process of self-discovery. And I gave a speech a while ago. I called it Disney World Metaphysics, and everybody laughed. And the reason why I said it is because a child, when they walk into Disney World and they see that castle and they see Mickey Mouse and they see Donald Duck and they see all these characters, what's the look on their face? They're so excited, and everything becomes magical. And that's the way we want to look at life. Everything is magical. And even down to the things, if there's somebody out there saying, well, I've lost everything in my life, and the only way to change that is to start changing your thoughts inside, and slowly but surely crawling your way out of those thoughts of, I lost everything, I have nothing to show. And when you get to that point where everything starts to become magical, you're like, wow, this is the coolest thing in the world. There would have been a time in my life I could have never done this radio show because I'd have just looked at the number of listeners and I'd have been terrified. I'd have froze up on the phone and everything else because I would have been so clouded with fear that I wouldn't have been able to do it. And fear keeps us in the dark, and it keeps us from experiencing this joyful, happy life that life really is about. You were not created to experience depression and fear and anger. You were created, and your body chemically is created to experience love, joy, and bliss. And it's given all these emotions within it to make a choice. And then when we bring ourselves back into oneness in ourselves and end the struggle within us, then we go into the flow of God or divinity, love, whatever you want to call it.
I think it's really important to get a clear definition. Fear may be different things to different people, and I love how you give specific examples. Money's always a big one, your relationships, all sorts of stuff. It can be causing fear. Can you define for people, what fear really is? And you have a special gift for helping people overcome fear, and it's really terrific, and I would love for people to hear what you have to say about this.
I think it's the Course in Miracles that it says it's a fear is false evidence appearing real. I'm not sure where I heard that, but it was a long time ago, and I swear it's from the Course in Miracles. But my definition of fear is what makes us sit in a dark room and afraid to move forward and open that door to see the light in the next room. And that's just kind of a picture that I wanted to give everybody. And most of us are sitting in that, and we're so terrified because we don't know what is the steps to get to the door to see the light. The light meaning that's where we want to be. That's the joy we want. That's the love we want. And so to me, fear is what holds us back. It is the glue that holds us in this illusion that we're small, that we're insignificant, that we're less than. And when we look at that fear and we let it go, it becomes, we walk into this other space of light, happiness, and joy. So fear is just basically, to me, what holds us back.
Yeah, we all got to I saw it, Jeremy. It's so funny. I remember seeing a picture once because, again, I know we both love these pictures, and I'm telling everybody, you got to go to Jeremy's fan page. It's absolutely fabulous. Talk about the best people we know. They are all over there. We're all in this together. It's great. But it was a man, and he was standing in front of a huge, gigantic chalkboard, and on the top it says, "Clear your fears here," and everybody was writing their fears on the chalkboard, and then people were crossing them out or erasing them on the board. It was just, I just love that imagery of it was so easy, to clear the fear, just erase it, just let it go, and it wasn't as large or as strong or as bold as we thought it was. It was a great imagery, and I think what you're saying to people is, hey, this is something that isn't even real, so don't give it legs, and
Exactly.
that is why we do that. It gets back to that mind chatter. I notice every thought that you present to us today really segues into another, and it logically builds on itself. It's a process.
Yep.
And, it's not difficult. It just, okay, do this, then do this, then do this. Tell us about some of the experiences in working with some of your clients, some of the favorite stories that you have. So if somebody's listening, it's like, and you can call in and get some free coaching here with Jeremy. You can call 347-637-1318, 347-637-1318, and just press pound 1, and that'll get you through to the switchboard, and you can ask Jeremy a question. It's a rare opportunity. But give us some stories, some really great stories of before and afters.
Well, I want to go to he's a student of mine, and no, actually a friend of mine now. He's no longer the student, but he was a young kid, I'm going to say, because that was at the time. That's what I saw him as. He was 22, and I remember the first time I met him. He had long bangs that covered his eyes, and he had a baseball cap on that was get pushed down to where you couldn't even see his eyes. And I remember looking at him, and I was just thinking, why is this guy totally not even looking at me in my eyes? and it was he was totally avoiding any eye contact, and I was this person's very afraid. And what happens is you can see where they're at, and they tell you where they're at. And so I remember having a conversation with him for a while, and he went into, he always wanted to go to school and all these things that he wanted to do and accomplish, but you could feel very strongly from him that he never thought that would ever happen. Well, after looking at it, he was waiting for his mother to help him get into school. He was waiting for these things to help him get into school. He was just waiting for somebody else to do it. And I said, well, things don't happen in life unless you start doing it yourself. And if people happen to help you, then that's cool. But have no expectations of that happening. You proceed forward and do things for yourself. And, if somebody loves you enough to come forward to help you, then you lovingly accept. And then one day you'll be able to lovingly give back. And so he ended up enrolling himself in school. He is now gotten a 4.0 and graduated with his degree, and he is doing very well for himself, actually. And you can just see now he's got his hair cut really short, and his eyes are bright. He stands tall. Now he actually does some coaching himself, and so it's just amazing to watch this person that in just a few years changed their life. And all it took was just to say, you have expectations of other people to help you, when you've got to find that in yourself. And it doesn't mean that we don't accept help from other people. It doesn't mean we get really strong inside of ourselves and hard inside of ourselves and say we're not going to accept help from anybody, or that we're not going to help other people. It just means that you start the process, and the universe will bring you what you need at the time when you need it. And we lovingly receive, and we lovingly give back. And there's a give and take. There's a flow. And that's all it took. And along the ways, and then I started teaching him about speaking his truth and doing what I call 20 seconds of courage to overcome his fears. And it came down to, he's even spoken in front of people, scared to death, but he did it. And I said, and what happens is it gets easier and easier each time. And so he's just one story, and he's my favorite, one of my favorites, because I just saw this shy kid turn into this great light, and now he has this great light onto the world. And I've seen an elderly person that had a pain in their body. This is a woman; she's in her 70s, and she had trouble walking, and she was afraid. And she was afraid to move forward, so she had a balance problem. And there was physical ailments that was causing it, but then what happened is that she was so terrified of falling that she barely wanted to walk. And so we just started walking. I was like, well, come on. You can grab onto me at first. And it's kind of like riding a bike. When you first started riding a bike, Deb, were you a little bit afraid? And then you finally took the step forward. Well, what ended up happening is that, she held on to me. And we just started walking around everywhere, and then we started going through the process. Well, what is your thought process right now? She goes, well, I'm afraid of falling. Well, I said, that's truthful. That's honest. And I said, so now let's look at that fear. And she goes, well, I'm afraid of breaking a bone. And I said, well, do you need assistance walking? And, and really what she can't do long distances walking because of her age and because she gets tired. I said, well, when you get tired, do you sit down? She goes, well, no, sometimes I don't want to disappoint people. I said, but you're not honoring yourself right there. That's not the truth. The truth is if you need to sit down, sit down. And if they need to go ahead, let them go ahead. And what ended up happening is that she started getting out more, experiencing life more, getting out more with her grandkids, getting out more with her children, enjoying life. And she had shut herself in before, all because she had a thought in her mind of being afraid of falling, which was okay. And then when she gets tired, she didn't want to disappoint people. And I'm like, but it's not about them. It's about you. And you're missing what is most important to you, is spending time with the people that you love. Because you're afraid.
Exactly. I really love how you take the fear and you don't attach the emotion to it. You just, okay, what are you afraid of? Well, that's a fact. That's truthful. That's honest. But it's what we're attaching to these things. And really the stories we tell ourselves are, it just absolutely comical, because when we hear ourselves speak it sometimes, I know sometimes it's almost laughable. Like, why would I possibly consider going through to the bones or the letting people down? Somebody listening may say, I would never think that. But there's a lot of freedom, in letting go and bringing those things into a reality. I think the old saying is, you're only as sick as your secrets. As soon as you bring them out, they disappear, they evaporate. And I think that that's one of the gifts that you have, is really identifying and getting down to those roots.
Yeah.
And that is really changing people's lives. But anybody can do that. Now, if somebody wanted to work with you for coaching or get in touch with you for speaking and so forth, I just want to make sure before we continue on here, because I really want to let people know about the book, which is available this month. How would they get in touch with you? How do you want people to connect with you?
Well, they can go to my website, jeremymcdonald.net. They can call me too. I mean, my number's on the website, but that's 813-421-2615. And they can email me. There's an email form on there as well. And so they can connect through Facebook. If you search for Jeremy E. McDonald, you'll find me. There's also a link on my website. So I mean, there's plenty of. I'm pretty available. I know,
and I really do. And I mean, I love the Lamplight group is great, but I tell you, that Facebook page, you've just got thousands of great people there, and it's just, I just love that place. So, Peace Be Still, that's the book, that's the new book. Mm-hmm. Tell us what we can expect when we read that.
Well, it starts off with me just talking about my journey and about where I was at, and then it talks about the process I took to find peace. And I go through a lot. I go through a lot of psychology and and theology and from different religions. But the most important part I do is I talk about my journey and about what the reader can do to find that in themselves. And so I like to use a lot of stories in my own life to help people relate. So they know that I'm a person, that I did this myself. But here's how you can do it for you as well. So that's what they can really expect. And then in the end, I actually give some exercises to help them and use it in their process. So that's why I call it Peace Be Still. And it's how you find that inner peace so that you can be still. And what was kind of cool about that is when I'd studied theology all my life, but I wrote that book, and when the publisher asked me what I wanted to name it, they were like, well, what do you want to name it? I was like, Peace Be Still. And in my mind, it didn't click in my head that it was a Bible scripture. And it took me about a month when I was Google searching the book and to see if it was up on a Google search that the scripture in Psalms came up. I was like, are you kidding me?
Oh, divine intervention. That's so, I just love the title of that book. We have a caller. Can we take a call? 603-801, you're on the air with Jeremy. Go ahead. Ask your question. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, you're welcome. I am actually calling to just say that I dealt with fear and the way that I had overcome that. And when he talked about the people, the student, and just the difference in his look, I do have a verse, and it's a psalm for you, that it says, I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. And, that thing of facing it, even with the lady walking, and just to say, this is what my fear really is. I just totally, I can agree with what he's saying. It's, what is that fear? I had a fear, like you said, laughable fear. I live up on a hill in New Hampshire, and in the winter it's snowy. I would not, about 3 years ago, I would not drive my kids in their elementary school down the hill in the snow all of a sudden one day. I'd lived for 7 years. Why? I had to face it. I got to the point of anxiety. My husband would take him. He's a loving man. He would take him. He'd look at me like, all right, and I'm stubborn and I won't do things. I'm like, I'm afraid. And he's like, okay. 2-3 weeks went by, and I'm a pharmacist. I know I could go get Xanax. I could have gotten all these other things. And I'm like, stop. And the title of your book, Peace Be Still, I was like, whoa, be still. Yeah. Ask what's inside the divinity like you talked about. What is it? What is it? Show me. And it was just okay. And I went to the Word of God for that divinity that's inside, and I pulled out it has to be about 30 verses on fear. And I overcame that, and then what did that do? It catapulted me, once that fear was relieved, into a whole nother. I stopped pharmacy about 6 months ago, and I now have a company called Jesus RX, and I have a prescription for fear. That was my prescription. That helped me overcome. We've got 12 different ones, and it's new. It's a new company. It's tough getting out there, but this, again, you like to share what has helped you, and so I have been just blessed that I didn't allow that fear to block me from going forward. Wherever this is going to lead, I have overcome that fear of just one thing at a time. And I know moms do it a lot with their kids. You're fearful this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Little stupid, laughable, you say, but when you're going through it, it's not laughable. And so when you talk, like I'm listening today, I went on and went, whoa. Fear is a huge issue in our society, and I think part of the reason I came out of pharmacy was I felt almost hypocritical trying to dose everybody with drugs. Not me, but you know what I mean. So I now live in that joy that you speak of. It's attainable, even through the depression, but it's the whole body, physical, mental, exercise, everything. We need medicine, in this earth, no doubt. But so I just say thank you for what you do, helping people overcome, being really the best they can be, and they don't, you forget. You forget. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for taking and calling in and sharing that. What a great testimony.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we have the best listeners too, don't you think? I mean,
that's awesome.
and it's like, wow, so many. Here she is. She's a pharmacist. And she's sharing about this topic that you focus on in helping people overcoming that fear. Mm-hmm. And it's not in that pill. It's not necessarily, not to diminish the medicine, but it really is in that inside. You say those things that are inside, working from the inside to clear that. So
she said a lot of cool things too, Deb. She said I just didn't feel good about giving people prescription drugs. And, later on she said we do make new medicine sometimes, but she didn't feel authentic in who she was for what she was doing now. And so she changed it. But some people would continue going forward for whatever reason. Pharmacists make good money. I did all this education, that kind of stuff, and they would stay there, but they wouldn't be true to themselves. And so she overcame her fear. I'm sure there was some fear in doing that or changing that in herself, and then she became authentic and she came into alignment with herself. And how perfect is that? I think it's cool.
She was the perfect caller for the show. It was just another divine intervention.
Yeah.
She really was. I love how you're saying, she did say so many things that were powerful to what you're speaking on. And, I think that it's when we can share our experiences, sometimes it's difficult. And you're saying about, all these listeners and everything, but that's how we help each other. Somebody listening to her story being the mom, and, why all of a sudden this day with that fear coming about going down in the New Hampshire area, it's hard to understand what triggers those things, but you really believe that we can all find the core to those things and really let them go.
Absolutely. I've seen it so many times. I've seen it in myself. I've seen it with, people around me. And then even before I started coaching, you just watch people just awaken within themselves. And you'd see it because they'd become aware of what was holding them back in the first place. And that, to me, is what awakening is all about. And
the awakening, the part that you mentioned, Jeremy, and our caller mentioned, too, that idea of authenticity, we're never going to have that peace, that happiness, that awakening, that strength if we're not who we're designed to be. Why do we waste so much time in the compare and despair? I mean, I know that there's, that we're almost fighting society because there's so many visuals and noise and look like this, be like this, have this. We have a battle to work against, which is why we have to take that time to realize that wherever we go, there we are, and your recipe for success is that connection with the divine, being quiet, doing that self-love.
Yeah.
It's really well, I don't know, what would you say to all of that, because it's so prevalent with anybody, United States, Europe, South America, Asia. I mean, it's everywhere.
Well, I think that too, with our relationship with our divine self, projection is key, because we have to look at our projections and know that we're always projecting, no matter what. It's like we are a vast projector, and we see what we see with our physical eyes is exactly what's going on inside of us. And so I always say my inside world is my outside world, my outside world is my inside world, and that confuses people. But really what it is that there's no difference between my inside world and my outside world. But I step inside of myself to look outward, and then I step inside of myself to look inward, because I want to understand the inner world. I want to know if it's torn up inside. I want to know if it's in fear. I want to know if there's anxiety. I want to know where it's coming from. I want to know the reasons why, because what's happening in here is what's projecting out here. So do I want to project love or chaos? And do I want to see with my physical eyes chaos, or do I want to see love? And so what I put out there is there's still nothing wrong with having a nice house, a nice car, and beautiful things and all that physical stuff. But we want to project out there that all those things come in love. And so, most of us are trying to, try to figure out how to get it, and keeping up with the Joneses type of thing. When I had a boss, actually, when I was the vice president of Advocate Mortgage, he was worth millions of dollars, and he was still not a very happy person. He had his big boat, and he had his 2 nice big houses, and he had his Hummer he drove around, and all that good stuff. But he was constantly afraid all that money was going away. So at 37 years old, he was worth millions of dollars, and he was a self-made millionaire, but he was miserable. But if he would have taken the time to build what Jesus taught us about building a foundation on rock, in other words, he built that inner love. He discovered himself inside. And if we all do that, if you discover yourself inside, then all these things that manifest around you become enhancements to your love. And look at people like Tyler Perry, who was homeless, and then finally things are working out for him. And that man, I've never seen that man not smile. I don't know if, when you've seen it, when he does a movie or an interview, I never see him not smile. And it's just things to look at. And so just get inside of there and look at where you're beating yourself up, where you're afraid, where you're sad, where you're depressed, and that's where the process starts. And, if you look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm fat, then you want to look at that. Well, where is that coming from? Is that judgment you just gave yourself, is it coming by the world because we think that skinny people are beautiful? Or is it coming from the fact that maybe I need to lose a little bit of weight because it'd make me healthier? Or, are you looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I don't like the way my hair looks? Are you going to change it because you're wanting acceptance from other people? Or are you going to change it because really inside of yourself, I just want to try something new? And these are the things you want to look at, because oftentimes we're looking at finding acceptance. There was years ago when I was in my early 20s, teens to early 20s, I found out that because I joke around a lot, and I can be sometimes loud and boisterous, and I used to pick on myself all the time to make people laugh. Well, I found that everybody wanted to be around me because I was funny. But inside, really what I was doing is making fun of myself. But I was doing it with the idea of bringing people around me because I felt lonely. And so then I brought people around then they would jab jokes at me, and then it would hurt. And when I tell them it would hurt me, they would say, well, I don't understand. You pick on yourself about that all the time. So I created this environment of everybody picking on me. And so, but instead of looking at the reasons why, and then building a life on being confident in myself, and then if I make a joke, it's because, it's the irony of it, and, it's something that I did, and I'm like, and I thought this, and wow, sometimes, my inside world can be a comedy. And I joke about that sometimes. I say that our inner world could be a comedy sometime.
It could be a crazy neighborhood sometimes up there. Don't go in. Don't enter at your own risk. Don't enter alone.
Yeah, and that's why it becomes such a joy now, because you look at it and you're like, wow. I had a couple months ago where I got there was a tail light that went out in my car, and I got pulled over, and I got a $101 ticket. I didn't know it was out, and inside of myself I was getting mad at this cop for giving me just giving me a warning. But then when I got home and I got into that mad, it really came down to having to spend the money. It came down to all these things, and he should have just done this, and all these judgments. And then when I laughed, and because I studied numerology throughout my life, and when I took the zero out of the $101 ticket, it formed 11. And if you understand 11, it's mastery energy. And I was like, oh, well, I'm going into mastery energy. Thank you, police officer, for bringing that message to me.
But it's really, you really do enjoy your own company, and I think that's why so many others do too. And it's so crazy. We think, well, I want all these people to like me, but we have to enjoy our own company first. And I love that you share all of these great stories that bring us through almost like a Socratic reasoning. Well, this means this, and what's that, and what does that mean, and what does that really mean? I mean, that is something that we don't do anymore. We don't really challenge ourselves. We just believe every thought we have. It's like, don't believe everything you think, because those thoughts, I get these visuals when you're talking about even the ticket or some of the other with the joking and everything. Those thoughts are like clouds. They just are always moving around, but you can't hold on to them because there's really no substance to them, and they're always going to come and go. But you teach people how to hold on to the things that matter. To have that, we have so much more control. Would you say that we have much more control than we believe we do if we can understand these principles and philosophies that you share?
Yeah, because when you get still inside of yourself and you get really in deep and you're loving yourself and you're in oneness in yourself and that struggle's in, you have more control than you can ever imagine. And that's where your real free will starts happening. And we think that we have free will to stay in our addictions and control the world around what we think we want. But when we get down into ourselves and really get, like I said, still, then we're unlimited. There's just so many things there's so many possibilities for us. And so exactly, we gain more control by getting more into ourselves and loving ourselves than we do when we're at any point in time prior to that. And but that's the key thing that most people don't get. They live in the illusion that I have to control my world to hold on to this. But if you just let go of all that, you become liberated. And you become free.
Real freedom, real freedom. And I love what you just said. We think that freedom is, I'm going to choose to have this addiction. That's not real freedom. That may be something that the world's telling you, but that lie, don't buy it, because you'll never get a return on investment there. And what you're trying to teach people and help people to have hope and encouragement for, through your Lamplight group, through the book Peace Be Still, through your great Facebook community, or all of your teaching topics that you give in your workshops, is, let's get a new key. Small keys open up big doors, but you have to have the key to be able to turn it. And I really look at your life mission as just giving us all today, I know for sure for me, and I'm sure for all the listeners, we have a great group in the chat room as well, you've just given out so many golden keys. I feel like I have so many keys now, and I'm just so excited, to just get them open now, get out there and start doing it. And you make the process fun, don't you? This good change can be fun. Don't be afraid of that. Change is exciting. I'm always saying, hey, discovering yourself is the best journey you can ever want to take,
Absolutely.
It's terrific. Lots of keys.
Absolutely. And those keys are the keys to your kingdom.
Ooh.
And you're divine royalty, and so look at it that way. And in royalty, they don't play it small, but every single one of you out there is divine royalty. So unlock the keys to your kingdom.
Oh, I love it. And, really, when we talk about selfishness, what you're saying is really it would be selfish for you to not be the best person you were created to be. It would really be selfish of you to not take these keys that Jeremy's given you today and start unlocking the doors to the best you, because your greatness is going to be maybe the only way somebody else can tap into theirs. So it's really an unselfish thing, and I love your definition of that with the self-love, not being selfish, but just being who you need to be for the rest of us, because we really do help each other. None of us can do this without the other person, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I just watched, there was something on television recently, it was a commercial, I think his name is T.D. Jakes, and he said, greatness is contagious. So if I find greatness in myself, it's going to be contagious to everybody else. And we start affecting everybody else.
Yeah, Julian, I think I have it. Yeah, Julian Robles, she was just writing in the chat room, yes, false evidence appearing real, so true, so true. Jeremy, I'm so sad that, we've actually gone up to the full hour here, and we're out of time, but hopefully you'll come back and share your shine with us again. But I will tell you, this show is absolutely filled, overflowing with pearls of wisdom and practical tips, practical tools, actual things we can all do when we get off this call. Jeremy has given you a great list. I think looking in the mirror right away and seeing how you respond to yourself is probably the first thing everybody needs to do. But so many great things in your book. Tell us how we can get your book again, because it's brand new, hot off the press, Peace Be Still.
Well, you can go to my website at jeremymcdonald.net, but you can also go to www.millionhugs, that's million and then hugs.com/peacebestill.html. Now, that website is important because you can get the link from my personal website as well, but it's also going to show my tour dates when I'm starting in June touring the country. So, and I'll be in the Boston area actually sometime in September.
I'll be looking forward to seeing you.
So, and I think there's a friend of mine up there trying to arrange I think it's called Trident Books, he's calling it, to do a book signing out there, and a couple other places in Salem that he's trying to find for me to speak at. So.
Awesome. Wow, you are such a gift, such a blessing, Jeremy. I just can't thank you enough for sharing your shine with us today. And we'll just keep posted, and I'll continue to share, where you're going to be and how to get in touch, and so people can meet you in person. You're a real person.
Thank you, Deb.
I love that. The million hugs. Oh, my gosh. It's such a happy place. You just have all this positive energy. You're awesome, Jeremy.
Definitely.
Well, I just want to let people know that if you've enjoyed the show, remember that this is a service to you, brought by you, to you, so you can help us grow and keep sharing great messages like Jeremy had today by sharing the show with a friend. You can go to iTunes, you can rate us. We just really appreciate you. This is why we're here. We all help each other. So whether you're new to the family or you're joining in, bring a friend and, share the show with somebody. Maybe your brother, your sister, somebody you're working with. You identify with what Jeremy's saying. Say, hey, listen, I was listening to Jeremy today, McDonald, and, here's what's going on, and just share the link, and that's something you can do that's very powerful. And the more you give to other people, the more you're giving to yourself. So go to jeremymcdonald.net and get that book, Peace Be Still, and absolutely connect with that Facebook community. It has thousands of people that are just like you, that are just positive, and you are who you associate with, as you would say, Jeremy. It's just amazing how all these great people show up once you start changing.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks, Deb.
Well, go ahead.
I was just saying thank you for having me on the show.
Oh my gosh, thank you. You're awesome, and you've really helped a lot of people today. And the good news is that the recording is 24/7 forever, so you could just keep on sharing the shine. BTR lady's telling me we're out of time, so I just want to close with my favorite quote, which is by Oscar Wilde, who always says to be yourself because everybody else is already taken. Go out, make it a great day. Connect with Jeremy. Lots of love to you.
Thank you for listening to the Best People We Know radio show with your host, Deb Scott. For more on Deb and her guests, plus her award-winning guidebook to transformation, The Sky is Green and the Grass is Blue, Turning Your Upside-Down World Right Side Up, go to Deb's website, greenskyandbluegrass.com. You can also connect with Deb for coaching or speaking and sign up for Deb's free Mind Vitamin newsletter while you're there. So now you're one step closer today to your greatness. We look forward to being with you next time on the Best People We Know radio show.